to Film on High Reviews, and today we're going to talk about the movie Rurouni Kenshin, a movie that came out in 2012, directed by Keisha Otomo, and this movie was pretty awesome actually. It's based off the manga of the same title. Yeah, so let's get right into it.
Well, I thought it was pretty good. It's interesting that we're back here because the first review we did was Blade of the Immortal. So here we are again talking about live-action manga adaptations, even though I'm not really a manga fan. But, from my outsider's perspective, I really enjoyed this movie. It was interesting to see kind of, like a samurai manga story that focused more on the political ramifications and stuff like that, and didn't really, it didn't dip too far into the supernatural. There were, some hints at that, but on the whole, it was a good film. I really enjoyed the political and the philosophical kind of ideas behind it. Obviously, the story of the film, it's about a character named Kenshin, and he used to be known as the Hikikomori Batosai. I think that's what he was called, and he was a very feared and notorious assassin during the Meiji Restoration. He became an assassin at a very young age, and now, years later, he's haunted by a lot of the things he did. He's trying to atone for them, just kind of wandering around, and he kind of wanders into this situation of corruption where innocent people are being shaken down, taken advantage of. It's kind of interesting because I mentioned this. It kind of harkens back to Blade of the Immortal in a way. I wonder if the guy who did Blade of the Immortal was inspired by this somewhat because, you've got him coming to help this younger girl who, she has her father's dojo that she wants to stop being taken over kind of thing. And there were a lot of interesting ideas in the movie that you don't really see in typical kind of manga, like morality and the philosophy of violence, and what is the purpose of a sword? What is the purpose of training to use a sword? Is it a celebration of life? Is it just for killing and death?
Yeah.
So just bringing those ideas into the fold were interesting, and incredibly well choreographed fight scenes. There was some slow-mo here and there, but it wasn't overused, very fluid. There's a bit of hyper editing here and there, but for the most part I thought it flowed pretty good. It wasn't too over the top. From what I understand, a lot of the stuff in the manga is kind of like that, so they need to represent that in a certain way, just show how kind of badass and skilled this guy is.
Yeah. I've read the manga, but maybe 10 years ago, so my memory's a little shoddy on it, but from what I remember, seeing the characters, seeing how the story developed itself, kind of stayed true to the manga in a sense, where maybe some scenes were kind of changed for maybe the time or something.
Yeah,
like
they
that.
probably had to blend some stuff together and bring some other stuff together. The movie opens with a scene of him fighting during the final battle.
Yeah,
before he walked away, and I don't think that's in the manga. That's something they included from the prequel just to kind of add context, and it works. It gives you a better sense of what's going on.
Exactly.
As opposed to just dropping you in with this wandering swordsman and not really knowing his history. We do get some flashbacks, we show how he got one of his scars.
Oh man, that
yeah, that was a pretty brutal scene, but it gives you it gives you a sense he's marked by that experience physically and psychologically, and his commitment to peace is symbolized by the katana he carries. That's kind of an infamous thing from the manga. It's a back blade. It's only sharp on the inside, and the main cutting side is blunt, so he mainly just kind of knocks people out with it.
True.
And it was an interesting idea.
Yeah. Kenshin I have noticed a lot of these people had pretty good lines and pretty good counters to people's philosophies.
Yeah.
And it wasn't overdrawn or it was a big ass speech. It was just nice and simple to the point where you're okay.
One of the overarching themes of the film is kind of the death of the samurai era, and the big villains of the film, the big corrupt, scumbags who are pushing opium and stuff. They're obviously very Americanized. They're wearing American clothes and suits, and they have clocks and guns and cigars and all this stuff. Very gaudy, very grotesque, and the guy who played the main villain, he was really hamming it up.
Let's talk about.
He had huge lower teeth, and he was really hamming it up. But he did a great job, just kind of really bringing this scummy guy to life. And he has these little servile guys, these cowards who are always flocking around him. That was pretty cool.
There was an interesting scene where you see him outside having his dinner, and you see his feet around with leeches and stuff, and he's kind of a leech himself in the movie, right? But you see him ringing the bell at one point, and a bunch of samurai just come out of nowhere just to get their food after working.
Yeah.
And he tells everybody, like, yeah, this is basically what samurai look like.
Yeah, now he's got all these samurai who don't have a purpose anymore, and they're basically just working for him as almost like a private militia doing his dirty work. And yeah, the actor who played Kenshin did a pretty good job. Kenshin's kind of an interesting character because, you know, I've seen images of him from the manga, and he is kind of... He looks boyish and innocent. He doesn't look like a hardened killer, really, but that's kind of meant to be the contrast.
Yeah.
You know, this guy who got into killing when he was really just a kid, and
like
you know,
14 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's you know, I thought the actor did a good job. He had like, you know, I thought he was going to be a bit more. I mentioned this, like hearing about the manga, I thought he was going to be like a bit more emo and depressed over all this stuff. But you know, he had a certain charm and a goofy sense of humor, and probably like the best character in the film was, I think his name is Sanosuke. Like, yeah, the street fighter guy who comes out of jail with the giant fucking guts sword and winds up teaming up with him. That guy was awesome.
The fight scenes with
yes.
Okay, so at one point in the film, during the end, you get Kenshin versus the one dude with the mask. He's all creepy.
Yeah.
And then you get Sanosuke versus the one dude who's just like, he kind of looks like a priest almost because he's got that weird clothing.
He's got like a monk thing going on.
Yeah.
The movie kind of intercuts between these two battles. Like, you know, Kenshin is fighting this guy. I think his name's Gin or Gine. I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Okay.
But yeah, this guy with like, he wears a mask and he's all scarred up. And it cuts with like Sanosuke fighting this other guy in the kitchen, and at one point they take a break to like drink wine and stuff. He cracks a raw egg and eats it. Like, that stuff was really hilarious, and it, like, you know, it was a good way to keep up the levity and
break the tension a little, you know, just to keep it so that, you know, it's interesting to watch. And it was cool because the two, Kenshin and Gin, them fighting was all about, you know, the blades and guns and, you know, them trying to take them, well, Gin trying to take him out. And you know, you see that Kenshin throughout the movie, he's just kind of like, there's like this rage that's bubbling inside that, you know, he almost wants to kill, but he just keeps...
He restrains himself.
Exactly. He keeps reminding himself, like, no, there's a reason why I don't kill anymore.
There's almost this, like, Batman thing going on where, like, you know, his opponents are kind of trying to push him back into his, like, killing thing. Even, like, the character Saito, who we see at the very beginning, you know, he tries to challenge him during the final battle, but he just walks away and he tells him, no, you know, there's no walking away for us. And then later we see that guy has become kind of a government official, but he's opposed to, like, the main drug smuggler guy. And they have a fight at one point where he's trying to push Kenshin, and, you know, he pushes his sword down onto his own shoulder so it cuts him, and points out, you know, a man with a blade facing himself is, you know, that's not a good position to be in. Like, I really like that scene of, like, you know, like you mentioned, it's kind of the symbolism of him, he'd rather cut himself than cut someone else, you know, like, and, you know, that character, everyone's trying to push him into this place where he becomes a killer again. You know, the fight with Gine was about that, and also there's the other character, Jine, who's, you know, he's the one who's taking the Batosai name for himself and just going around being a remorseless killer. Like, there's a scene in the movie that's literally like the Terminator. Like, he attacks the police precinct and he's just murdering everyone left and right.
Man. Some of the shots that they used for this was really cool. Like, there's not a lot of supernatural things, but they do use, I would say, like, augmented techniques.
Yeah, like the character of Gine has like some weird, he calls it like soul technique or spirit technique, where he can kind of paralyze someone, and he's got really creepy eyes. I thought the actor who played Gine was pretty good. He had like an intensity. He kind of reminded me of an actor named Takeshi Kitano, who's like a fairly famous Japanese actor and director. He's done a lot of stuff. Yeah, that guy, he wasn't played by that guy, but he just reminded me kind of he had that same intensity, and he did a really good job.
No, he played a good main villain for the movie. Like, you got the rich business dude who's kind of like the sleazy
or slimy, whatever you say.
Slimy type of dude, and then you got this one Terminator dude who's just like, I'm here to kill. That's all I'm here to do.
Pretty much,
you know? And
well, he's kind of tried to take on the Batosai name for himself. Like, he wants to be the true Batosai, but
comes all to just their final battle. And big spoiler here, but when Batosai versus what's his name there?
Gine?
Gine.
Yeah, Gine's the evil Batosai.
So Gina's got the girl, pretty much.
Kaoru, he takes her hostage.
He takes her hostage, puts her in a paralysis and stuff.
Yeah, he paralyzes her lungs to try and suffocate her, and that was a good scene because it adds a lot of tension. He tells him, like, you know, she's got 2 minutes to live, and he tells him the only way it can break is if she lifts it herself or if you kill me.
Exactly, and
Kenshin was about to kill him.
Exactly,
like he was ready to do it, but she broke the curse.
She broke
herself.
the curse. She said, "Don't kill him." And then after that, this guy just basically said, "Okay, you know what? Boom, seppuku. I'm just gonna kill myself."
Himself,
And just to tell you right now, guys like you and me, we're never gonna stop.
Yeah, it's never gonna end. And yeah, the movie was kind of trying to, like, that's what I like about the story. Like, it seems like they were trying to make a broader commentary just about the dying age of the samurai and, like, men who live their lives by the sword and had these violent lives. Like, what is left for them to do? Like, what are they gonna become? Where do you go after that? Like, can you just become a normal person? Like, you know, it's those kind of scars and those things that haunt you. You can't just turn your back on that and leave you behind. And we leave that behind. And we see a lot of these characters, you know, like Kenshin and Saito and Jine and these guys who fought during the war and had these crazy lives. And now they're all, you know, they're trying to kind of find a place in this world and fit in, and it's just not really working for most of them. Saito's doing well, but that's because he kind of sold his soul in a way.
Yeah. And another cool, like, line is that at the middle of the movie, when you first see Sanosuke, he's coming in from out of jail, and he's at the bar, and then the one guy is saying, like, okay, I'm gonna pay you if you can kill this guy. And so they're fighting at the bridge, and all the people are gathered and watching, and then Kenshin just goes out and tells him, like, hey, are you really gonna fight me for this guy?
Yeah, exactly. He kind of appeals to his honor. Like, that's the interesting thing about Kenshin. Like, he tries to kind of appeal to people's sense of honor and tries, you know, do you really want to do this? Are you sure you're fighting on the right side, kind of thing? Yeah.
It's the type of dude that is pretty much wise beyond his years, because in the manga he's pretty much 28 years old when we first see him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, during this timeline. And so from 14 years old, 14 years of just fighting, and seeing him being all goofy, all smiles and stuff. As we hear, people who with the biggest smile usually have like a really sad heart type of thing. Yeah. And so with this character,
it's kind of like Spike Spiegel in a way, like acting like goofy but having a really dark, tragic past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So him coming up with the wise words, telling people, like, okay, chill before we fight. Like, can we just talk for a second? But when you see him at the end, when he's about to kill Jine, that's when you see, like, okay, the old killer is still there, and this dude clearly made his point. You know, Kaoru wasn't there, you would have killed me.
Yeah, it took him a while to push him to that point, though. Even then, he was only going to kill him to, like, protect someone else or potentially to save someone else. So I can see being pushed to that extreme. But yeah, like, it's kind of weird giving my opinion because this is a pretty, like, famous manga. So, like, I'm giving my opinion on a manga, a live adaptation of a manga I haven't read. But, you know, in my general uninformed opinion, it was really good. Like, it was well shot, well done. It got, like, the ideas across. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I'm with the same, and although I haven't read the manga in a while, remembering some of the scenes and pretty much knowing beat for beat what was happening throughout the movie, for me this was kind of like, okay, cool. Like, this makes me want to get back into the manga, keep reading it, see exactly like what happens afterwards. And I know that there's movies that cover pretty much the rest of the arcs.
This is only like the first in a series of adaptations. There's also Rurouni Kenshin, Kyoto Inferno, Part 3, The Legend Ends, the final, the beginning. Like, it seems like they really went out of their way to kind of adapt as much of the manga series as they could, and that's pretty cool. Like, again, I've only seen this first, so I don't know if the other ones hold up as well. It can be kind of a tricky thing to adapt into live action sometimes because a lot of manga tends to be very stylized and very over the top. But I think that this, you know, again, I haven't really read the manga, but just based on what you've told me about it and what I've read about it, this seems like it was more suited for a live action treatment than most manga because it's more grounded and more based in history and there isn't as much supernatural stuff. So I think that's probably why this series of live action adaptations kind of succeeded where a lot of other adaptations don't.
That makes sense.
It's harder to pull off, you know, a live action JoJo or a live action Berserk or something like that because it's so
it's
yeah,
out there.
it's part of, you know, the story to have these over the top things happening. But Rurouni Kenshin, it's a bit more, yeah, like the fighting is flashy and over the top, but there's no, you know, giant demons or stuff like that. So you can get away with a more kind of realistic sensibility.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's cool that they pulled it off, and people seem to have responded to it pretty well. That's always kind of the scary thing when you're adapting a really well-known, beloved property. Like, there's always a chance that it could flop. Like, you know, you look at something like Berserk, which is another really, really beloved manga, and, you know, there's been a few, like, adaptations. There was the 97 anime that people liked, and 2016 anime that people didn't like, you know.
Yeah.
I wonder what a live-action Berserk would be like.
That would be interesting.
It would be hard to pull off, but
yeah. But overall, I would say for me, my general rating for this movie, it would be a 4 out of 5.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5 as well.
Yeah. So that's our rating, guys. Thank you again for watching our review for Rurouni Kenshin. Came out in 2012. Check it out.
Check it out.
Peace.